It was a bright, clear morning when Sarah, a simple woman dressed in old, modest clothes, walked into a famous luxury car dealership. The showroom was beautiful, filled with expensive cars, and she felt a quiet excitement as she stepped inside. Today was special for her. She wanted to see a Rolls-Royce, a car she had always admired from afar. As she drew closer to one of the cars, a sharply dressed salesman noticed her. He gave her a judgmental glance, looking down at her simple attire. Without hesitation, he walked towards her and said coldly, "This car is not for people like you." Sarah was shocked and felt humiliated. The sting of those words hit deep in her heart. She tried to hold back her tears and said softly, "Doesn't everyone have the right to at least look at a car?" But the salesman, joined by a few other staff members, didn't listen. They mocked her openly, making it clear that she was not welcome there. Eventually, the staff forcefully led her to the door and pushed her out of the dealership. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Sarah walked away quietly, feeling ashamed and hurt. In that moment, she felt like the world had judged her worth by her clothes and status, not by the person she truly was inside. Little did the staff know, this was just the beginning of a story that would soon teach them and the world the true meaning of respect and dignity. Sarah returned home with tears in her eyes, still deeply hurt by the way she had been treated. The sting of those words, "This car is not for people like you," felt like a knife in her heart. As she entered the house, her husband, David, noticed the pain and humiliation on her face. He was a quiet, composed man, but seeing the tears on Sarah's cheeks stirred something deep within him. He asked her what had happened, and she quietly recounted the whole incident at the dealership. As he listened, David felt a wave of anger and heartbreak rise within him. What the world didn't know was that David, despite living a modest, unassuming life, was an extremely wealthy and powerful man. He had intentionally kept a low profile, choosing humility over showing off his status. He wiped away Sarah's tears and held her hands, telling her gently, "The world doesn't understand that a person's worth isn't defined by their clothes or status. But soon they will." In that moment, David made a decision. He would no longer stay hidden. He would make sure that the world learned a lesson about respect, dignity, and the value of every human being, regardless of their appearance. With that quiet resolve burning in his heart, he promised Sarah that the next day, those who treated her like a worthless person would understand the true strength and honor she possessed. The next morning, the atmosphere outside the dealership was quiet and still when suddenly a sleek, gleaming Rolls-Royce pulled up right in front of the showroom. Its polished surface reflected the morning sun, and its presence drew the attention of every staff member inside. The staff watched in shock as the door opened, and out stepped David, dressed in an elegant suit that spoke volumes about his status and taste. Right beside him was Sarah, no longer a humiliated visitor, but a confident, graceful woman. The staff members, including the salesman who had thrown her out the day before, froze in their places. They could hardly comprehend that this was the same woman they had mocked and thrown out. With slow, confident steps, David and Sarah walked into the dealership. The staff lowered their heads, unable to meet their gaze. The atmosphere was charged with tension. David didn't say a word at first. He didn't have to. His presence, and the sheer elegance with which Sarah carried herself, spoke louder than words. Then, with calm authority, David called the manager and the staff forward. The very people who had insulted and humiliated Sarah now stood before them, ashamed and silent. This was the moment that would teach them a lesson they would never forget, that worth, respect, and honor have nothing to do with appearances or status. In that moment, a humble couple became symbols of dignity and strength, and a careless staff learned a lesson about respect that would stay with them forever. With all the staff and the manager standing quietly before him, David finally spoke. His voice was calm, but carried a weight that silenced the room. He said, "Does a person's worth really come from the clothes they wear, or from the car they can afford? True respect is earned by how we treat others, especially those we consider weaker or different from ourselves." Each word sank deep into the staff. The salesman who had thrown Sarah out felt a sting of guilt and bowed his head, unable to look her in the eyes. The manager, ashamed of the behavior that had been allowed in his dealership, stepped forward and offered a heartfelt apology. Through tears, Sarah smiled and said, "We don't need revenge or anger. All we ask is that you remember one thing. Every person deserves respect, regardless of how they appear. True strength lies in kindness, and true richness is found in how we treat those who have nothing." In that moment, a profound silence settled over the dealership. The staff felt the sting of their mistake and a sense of transformation. They promised to carry this lesson forward, to treat every person with dignity, regardless of status. As David and Sarah walked out of the showroom, hand in hand, it felt like a chapter had closed. But for those in that dealership, it was the beginning of a new one, a chapter shaped by humility, respect, and compassion. As David and Sarah stepped out of the dealership, the air felt different, calmer, brighter. The staff stood at the entrance, reflecting deeply on the lesson they had just learned. What started as an ordinary day became a moment that changed their outlook forever. Word of the incident quickly spread throughout the city. People talked about the humble couple who refused to let humiliation define them. They spoke about how true worth doesn't reside in appearances, money, or status, but in character, kindness, and humility. The story of David and Sarah became a beacon of hope for countless others, reminding them that every person deserves respect and dignity. For David and Sarah, it was never about showing off or seeking revenge. It was about teaching a lesson that no person is too insignificant to deserve kindness, and no person is too wealthy to forget humility. In the end, the Rolls-Royce wasn't just a symbol of luxury. It became a symbol of strength, grace, and the victory of character over judgment. Together, David and Sarah left a mark that would be remembered for years, reminding the world that a person's worth is measured by their heart, and true richness shines brighter than any material possession.